Well, hey everybody, Mike Griffith here, DawgNation, joined by Chip Towers, and Chip and I just covered practice number 2 and did some interviews with Georgia players after practice. Of course, Chip, just throw it out there, J.R. Reed wasn't out at practice. I don't anticipate that that's anything serious, but J.R. being a senior safety, a very important person on the team, you always just wonder, just in case. I'm sure that Kirby Smart will address that Saturday, and I don't expect there to be. I feel like if there was something seriously wrong with J.R. Reed, we would have heard that by now.
Yeah, it was interesting. I actually, speaking of J.R. Reed, spent a good amount of time down there watching Charlton Warren. I didn't get, you were on one end of the field last week, and we switched ends this time, and wow, Mr. Intensity is right on that guy. He was jumping the receivers for not the defensive backs for not being ready to go just immediately the other ones. And he kept saying, we got 8 minutes to get better, guys, 8 minutes to get better. Now, be ready to go. It was interesting to watch. And he was working with the cornerbacks at the time I was there. And I actually didn't initially notice that J.R. Reed wasn't out there working with the safeties, which were out in the field in a different a different part of the field. But it's that's what time that we're in spring practice. I mean, it's so much concentration on fundamentals. Yesterday you saw James Coley, down on one knee, working with Jake Fromm's hands on the snap. It's not like Jake Fromm's never taken a snap, but this is the way I want to take it. So this is where spring practice starts, and this is where we are. We're not in pads yet, and getting a lot of fundamental work. Great day for it, though, and a good long practice.
Yeah, Charlie Warner talked about that. He talked about how when you change position coaches, by the way, third different position coach at tight end in the last 2 years for Charlie Warner, but how the coaches just want you to do very subtle things differently. And when the new position coach comes in, whether it's how you get in front of someone to block on the backside, for example, was what Charlie said. Very subtle, but new things you have to relearn and do it the way your new coach does it. Now, Todd Hartley, of course, now running the tight end room instead of Jim Chaney. It's kind of interesting, Chip. I posted a story tonight. Everybody keeps talking about Coley throwing the football more than Jim Chaney. And I'm not going to tell you that the players didn't like Jim Chaney, but they sure are excited about James Coley.
Yeah, if there is some kind of mandate to not let reporters know what the strategic plan is, it's out the window for this spring, because that has come up a lot. In fact, one of the more interesting conversations I had after the practice, JJ Holloman came up, and just the fact that he came up, number one, we know that's Kirby that's sort of a leadership committee type of thing when you're asked to come talk to the press. But JJ, very forthright, very deliberate, I would say, in his answers, and very confident about that wide receiver core. Now, it starts with JJ Holloman. He's the guy. They lost so much production off of last year's team, but he's the one guy that was a regular part of the rotation, the one guy. But he spoke with great confidence about all those other guys that they have coming back. I tell you, the name that keeps coming up more than any others, and it came up with JJ, was Kearis Jackson.
Number 10.
Everybody talks about Kearis Jackson. He says that he's a little bit bigger and more physical than McCole Hardman in that flanker position. Slot position, and so that's going to be really interesting to see if Kearis Jackson. A lot of talk about Tommy Bush, a lot of talk about Matt Landers, the two big 6'5" guys, and I'll have to go back and listen to my tape. I'm sorry if I don't get this right, but it was either Tommy Bush or Matt Landers that's really fast in addition to being really tall. I think it was Tommy Bush.
Yeah, who we don't hear about, although when I asked Holloman who the fastest guy was, he mentioned Demetrius Robertson.
Yeah.
But we don't hear as much about Demetrius Robertson as I thought we would.
Yeah, I had to, actually, when we were talking about the flankers, because JJ said I'm not sure, 100% sure if he was joking or being serious about it, that he had talked to the coaches about letting him play some flanker. Some pretty cool plays come out of that flanker position. And he ran through different guys who were playing at flanker, and then I said, "What about D-Rob?" And he said, "Oh, I forgot about D-Rob." So that was kind of interesting. I think D-Rob is going to be an impact player in some way, shape, or form this year.
Has to be, right?
I cannot believe that what he did in the Pac-12 just absolutely will not translate whatsoever. I understand last year because he does play that slot position, and you come in there with McCole Hardman, Terry Godwin, and Akil Crumpton. That was a tough rotation to crack. I get that. But this year, I would think everything I know about Demetrius Robertson, 700 yards, 7 touchdowns as a freshman in the Pac-12.
Freshman All-American.
Tells me that he's going to have to be a factor. And not just in the receiving game. I think he's going to probably have something to say about returns.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, this guy's a former 5-star with elite speed. I mean, he's got to be used somewhere. You need to replace McCole Hardman. Boy, I wrote a story today. How much would McCole Hardman have been valued? Oh my goodness, what a year. He could have been a Heisman guy. Remember, he started out, he was getting Heisman talk the first half of the season. But anyway, McCole's gone now, but for the record, McCole's commented in that story as well. Everybody's saying James Coley likes to throw the ball more. And I feel like Kirby gave himself a little wiggle room.
Yeah,
because if you look back, George
on his balance.
Now, a lot of people think balance is 50-50, but it can be 30-70 one game and 70-30 the next. I think Coley's convinced him, but part of the convincing, Chip, is that he's got a third-year quarterback he trusts.
That's right.
He's not going to let a young guy throw it around and turn it over.
Yeah,
a lot of this is Kirby's trust in Jake Fromm. I guarantee you, if Coley was coaching a true freshman, Kirby, these guys wouldn't be talking about throwing it around a lot. A lot of this has to do with Jake Fromm. And I think a lot of it also has to do with the personnel in the backfield. Let's face it, DeAndre Swift is very good catching the ball in the backfield.
You want to get him out on the edge.
So is James
Cook. Whether it's a toss sweep or a pass.
Absolutely.
And actually you make a great point there. Georgia would never admit it. James Coley would never admit it. At the end of the day, if it does come to fruition and Georgia throws the ball significantly more this season, the reality is they probably would have under Jim Chaney as well. I mean, Jim Chaney, they threw the ball a ton when he was at Tennessee.
Right.
I mean, it all depends on what you've got and what you've got to work with. And when you've got DeAndre Swift and Elijah Holyfield or Dick Chubb and Sony Michel, that's one way to go. This year it's a little bit different. And, I think no matter how you slice it up, Georgia's going to throw the ball around more, and there's certainly verbal evidence of that in talking to these offensive players, which we got today.
We're 2 practices in, Chip. It's a little early to get a vibe for this team. It still feels like a team it's still, but to me, it still feels like a team that's missing players. I don't sense a new energy.
Yeah, they kind of are, certainly on defense.
I don't sense a new energy or a new vibe or a new way about these guys yet. Now, again, it's only 2 practices in, but they have been training together.
Yeah.
I guess I want to meet more of these defensive players. I feel like so far, who have we talked to on defense? Michael Barnett.
Yeah.
Has that been it? J.R. Reed?
Yeah, J.R., yeah.
And J.R. was a team.
I wrote a story on J.R.
Yeah, he was a team leader last year, but there needs to be more. Somebody else needs to emerge.
let's say here for a minute. We have to wrap up soon, but how about this conversation? Because I had this conversation with somebody earlier today. And it's so if you were to point to somebody on Georgia's defense right now who has the best chance of probably being a star player this year, like All SEC, All America, Roquan caliber, or something below Roquan. But DeAndre Baker, and it's like I don't see that kind of player in J.R. Reed. All due respect to J.R. Reed, I think he does a great job, but he's not just this unbelievable athlete. Tyson Campbell, Eric Stokes, maybe. I don't know.
Richard LeCount, he looked a little bit bigger to me out there in pads.
Yeah, and he's certainly close to making a lot of plays. Really on the edge, I think, is where. Probably that's where all that 5-star talent, for whatever reason, has accumulated.
Yeah, but they didn't do anything last year.
They didn't do anything last year, but they need
DeAndre
to this
Walker,
year. So
maybe Tate Crowder, but again, he had 2 picks, but he didn't win the job outright last year.
Or Monty Rice. I mean, it's a very difficult thing. If you tried to project an all-conference player right now, it's not easy. And that, I really didn't feel that way. I mean, I'm not trying to make a condemnation of Georgia's defense. It's just an interesting conversation to have. Is who is going to end up starring on this team. I think somebody will. I'm surprised every year I've ever covered college athletics. There's that's why you do it, for the surprises and how things are going to turn out.
Somebody does have to emerge.
They need to. Yeah, they need to.
Yeah, if they're going to compete for a championship. Well, listen, we're going to wrap it up. Day practice number 2. Who knew Oregon was at practice number 1? Which
that
is
was a good observation.
I
on your
mean,
part.
it's kind of curious. I mean, the media can't go. I mean, we're just a bunch of dumb media guys. I don't know what he expects us to learn in 30 minutes. But they're going to put Oregon out there with all those trained eyes, the way those
and
coaches
hang out,
and the way they network and talk.
Yeah.
I mean, now I know Kirby says there's no secrets, but I just don't quite understand why you'll let Texas and Oregon come to practices, but the dumb media can't be there for more than 10 minutes. Not like we can say, oh, look what they're running over there.
Fatone Bauta out there today too, getting the scoop for Monmouth.
Yeah, well, Kirby likes to
anyway.
open it up. He's got a lot of confidence. This weekend is the coaching clinic. Thankfully,
Yeah.
Kirby is going to be available to us Saturday. So look for this type of broadcast on Saturday. Chip and I will do another wrap-up. George is going to practice. They'll let us in for the 10 or 15 minutes. And then Coach Smart will talk to us and kind of share his observations after week one. I'm always interested to hear what he has to say. He always says things that intrigue me, and I'd listen really hard. And I keep a copy of all those transcripts, Chip. I'm not going to lie, because so many times I can reach back and say, he said something about that. And you go, boom, he told us, and we didn't know what he was telling us then.
Yeah.
And I think we're on to something with this balance thing, though.
Yeah.
I think we're on to something with this balance game. Everybody have a great Thursday night. Chip and I will be back Saturday.
See ya.